The Cythorian fleet emerged from the depths of space like a storm, a looming dark mass of sleek, jagged warships that shimmered under the cold light of distant stars. These alien conquerors, known for their relentless expansion across the galaxy, had wiped out dozens of civilizations. They considered Earth little more than an insignificant dot, a primitive planet ripe for invasion. But they had underestimated one crucial detail: humanity's ability to survive. For centuries, Earth had been a target for galactic invaders. The Cythorians had heard whispers of humanity's resilience, but the legends were dismissed as myth. In truth, Earth had quietly weathered invasions from species far more powerful than any the Cythorians had encountered. But no one had expected humans to come up with something like this. A deep space scanner aboard the lead Cythorian ship, the Vernithar, detected a strange anomaly as it entered the solar system. Zeroth, the fleet's commander, furrowed his brow as his screen filled with data that made no sense. The readings didn't match anything in the Cythorian database. This was no ordinary Earth-made vessel. The ship in question was massive, its structure brimming with a potent energy signature, one that made Zeroth's blood run cold. It wasn't just a warship, it was a weapon, a creation far beyond Earth's supposed technological capabilities. "Commander, we've never seen anything like this," reported Tylax, his science officer, voice trembling with the thrill of discovery. "It's Earth-made, but it's alive. Its energy signature is unlike anything we've encountered." Zeroth's eyes narrowed. He had conquered dozens of worlds, toppled their armies with ease, but this was something different. "Prepare to launch a probe. I want to know everything about this ship," Zeroth ordered, his voice steely. It was too dangerous to ignore. The Cythorians activated a remote probe, sending it toward the massive ship, which floated motionless just outside Earth's atmosphere. The probe's sensors began to scan, and the results came back in an instant, but they only added to the mystery. The warship had a massive, almost unnaturally dense hull, capable of absorbing energy from the surrounding space. Yet there were no signs of active propulsion, no exhaust systems, no indication of how it was maintaining its position in orbit. "Scan the human homeworld," Zeroth commanded, uneasy at the scale of this discovery. The Cythorians were masters of war and technology, and yet they had never encountered anything like this. The ship's power core was unlike any energy source they had ever seen. Its composition was bizarre, alien to the Cythorians, and the scan readings showed that it had been dormant for centuries. Yet it hummed with an almost eerie vitality now. As the probe delved deeper into the ship's systems, Zeroth and his fleet watched in stunned silence. Suddenly, the ship came to life. The dark silhouette shifted in the vastness of space, its weapon systems activating with a low, ominous hum. The alien technology seemed to resonate with the pulse of the ship itself, alive, almost sentient. Zeroth's gaze hardened. The humans had always been underestimated. No one had expected this level of technological sophistication, certainly not from a species so long thought to be on the brink of extinction. "Prepare for immediate engagement," Zeroth commanded. He wasn't about to let this new discovery slip away. Whatever the ship was, it was now a threat, one that needed to be crushed. As the Cythorian fleet moved into position, the humans remained unaware of the danger approaching. Their planet, still recovering from the scars of past invasions, was about to face a force they never could have predicted. Earth was about to learn the hard way that its survival and the mysterious warship in orbit would change everything. Zeroth's ships moved closer, their weapons powering up. He thought to himself, with a sneer, "This will be an easy conquest. Even the most advanced human weapon is still primitive compared to our might." What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that humanity's true strength was just beginning to awaken. The warship had only just made its first hum. The Cythorian fleet closed in on the warship, their engines purring in the silent vacuum of space. Zeroth's command ship, the Vernithar, led the charge, flanked by a dozen smaller vessels. They had expected a straightforward conquest and easy destruction of a primitive human creation. But the deeper they dug into the warship's mysteries, the more uncertain the Xathorians became. "Commander, the ship is responding to our proximity," Tylax reported, his voice thick with unease. His eyes darted between the readouts, analyzing the rapidly changing data. The warship had shifted position again, and now something even stranger was happening. It was as if the ship were studying the Xathorian fleet. There was no overt sign of weapon activation, but its energy readings were pulsing in an unpredictable pattern, fluctuating with an alarming intensity. "Scan again," Xerath demanded, his voice clipped. "I want to know what we're dealing with." Tylax's fingers danced across his console, forcing the probe to dive deeper into the ship's systems. But instead of providing the answers that Xathorian sought, the scan results were becoming increasingly erratic. Power fluctuations, erratic electromagnetic pulses, and then something entirely unexpected. "Commander, the warship, it's adapting," Tylax whispered, unable to hide the shock in his voice. "It's not just a ship, it seems alive. Its systems are self-repairing. Every time we scan it, it changes. Whatever technology it possesses, it's beyond anything we've encountered." Xerath gripped the arms of his chair, his mind racing. What sort of weapon was this? The Xathorians had fought countless species, each with their own technological marvels, but none had demonstrated such autonomy. It wasn't just a machine. It was alive, reacting, learning, and evolving in real time. The ship was a perfect amalgamation of human ingenuity and some form of alien intelligence, an unnerving combination that sent ripples of dread through Xerath's thoughts. "We cannot allow this ship to remain intact," Xerath muttered, his mind already turning to strategies. "Engage immediately. Bring it down." As the Xathorian fleet moved into position, the warship appeared to make its first move, shifting its position in space with an almost deliberate precision. Xerath's eyes narrowed as he watched the ship's weapons flare to life, not with a simple show of force, but with coordinated, rapid movements that seemed almost intentional. The ship wasn't just defending itself, it was strategizing. The first volley of Xathorian fire slammed into the warship's shields, and for a moment, it seemed as though the ship might falter. But then, in a split second, the shield's energy signature pulsed, absorbed the blow, and redirected the attack. The energy deflected back toward the attacking Xathorian ship, causing its shields to flicker before collapsing entirely. The Xathorians barely had time to react before the warship fired back, sending a brilliant pulse of energy that struck another ship with pinpoint accuracy. The explosion was blinding, sending debris scattering into space. "Retreat!" one of the Xathorian captains screamed, but it was too late. The warship, now fully awakened, was no longer just defending. It was hunting. Xerath watched in horror as his fleet started to crumble under the unexpected ferocity of the human vessel. Ships that had once been symbols of Xathorian might were now mere debris. The warship's weapons were no longer just defensive. They were designed to exploit weaknesses, to target and incapacitate specific systems. It seemed to learn as it fought, evolving with each strike. "How are they doing this?" Xerath muttered to himself, gripping the sides of his chair as another Xathorian vessel exploded in a brilliant ball of light. Tylax's voice was a whisper of disbelief. "They're not just defending. The warship is outthinking us. It's anticipating our every move." Xerath's mind raced as the realization dawned. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were doing so with an intelligence, an adaptability that outmatched the Xathorians in ways that could not be explained by technology alone. With every battle, the humans seemed to grow stronger. The warship, like a wounded beast, had been awakened, and it was hungry for victory. Xerath's fleet, once confident in its might, now found itself caught in the middle of a deadly dance with an adversary far more dangerous than they could ever have imagined. "We need to reconsider our approach," Tylax said quietly, his voice barely audible over the chaos of the battle. Zeroth did not answer. He was already formulating a new plan, but one thing was clear. They were not just fighting a warship. They were fighting an entire species that had evolved into something far beyond their initial perception. Humanity had a hidden strength, a resolve, and a cunning that was now on full display. "Prepare for a full-scale assault," Zeroth finally ordered, his voice low with grim determination. This will not be over quickly. But deep in the back of his mind, a chilling thought lingered. What if this warship was just the beginning? As the battle raged in space, the Exithorians continued to struggle against the warship's overwhelming might. Zeroth's fleet was dwindling, the once unshakable Xithorian resolve cracking under the weight of their enemy's brilliance. Yet the more Tylax studied the warship, the more he realized that this conflict wasn't just a matter of advanced technology. It was something much more profound. The humans, it seemed, had been preparing for something long before the Exithorians ever set foot in the galaxy. In the heart of the Vernithar, Tylax hunched over a console, his hands moving rapidly across the interface. He had finally unlocked a fragment of the warship's data core, a hidden cache that had long been sealed away. What he found sent a cold shiver down his spine. "This isn't just a weapon," Tylax murmured to himself, his voice filled with a growing sense of dread. "It's a legacy." He decoded the ancient data, revealing the chilling truth. The warship was part of an Earth project from centuries ago, an initiative that predated the rise of the Exithorians. Humanity had not only survived the countless invasions, but had begun to prepare for their inevitable return. Earth had long known about the presence of extraterrestrial species, and in response, they had developed advanced technologies, hidden from the public eye, to defend themselves. But this wasn't just about weapons or military tactics. This warship embodied humanity's greatest strength, their ability to adapt. The warship had been built not only with extraordinary technology, but with the understanding that any threat could be countered, any weakness could be exploited. The humans had anticipated not only the arrival of invaders like the Xithorians, but the tactics they might use and the strategies they would employ. The ship's eye wasn't just sophisticated. It had been programmed to think like a human, to learn from every encounter and grow stronger with each passing moment. It was more than a machine. It was an extension of humanity's will to survive. As Tylax sifted through the data, he uncovered something even more astonishing. The warship was linked to an ancient human program known only as the Echelon Protocol. This initiative had been created in response to humanity's first contact with alien forces. It was a contingency plan, one that had quietly evolved over the centuries, out of sight from the rest of the world. The warship wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's darkest hour. It was humanity's answer to the universe's predatory nature. Tylax's fingers froze over the console as the realization set in. The Echelon Protocol wasn't merely about surviving. Its ultimate goal was to ensure that humanity could reclaim their place in the stars, no matter the cost. Humanity had not been lying in wait, weak and defenseless. They had been learning, gathering knowledge, building the perfect weapon, and most importantly, preparing their people for something far greater than mere survival. They had been preparing to fight. Outside the Vernithar, Zeroth's fleet faltered. His forces, already battered, struggled to respond to the warship's unpredictable attacks. The humans weren't just defending. They were driving the Xithorians back. Zeroth had underestimated their resolve, but he had also failed to understand the depths of humanity's cunning. Tylax's hands trembled as he continued to search through the warship's files. The warship was only the beginning. There were other ships, other weapons hidden within the depths of Earth's oceans and skies, each part of the larger plan, each piece waiting for the moment when humanity would rise to take back what had been taken from them. "What if we've misjudged them?" Tylax asked quietly, his mind racing with the gravity of the situation. This warship, it's not just a weapon. It's a challenge, a warning to the galaxy. The humans have been preparing for this moment for centuries. Xaroth, standing behind him, stared at the screen in disbelief. The cold reality settled in. This wasn't just about one ship or one victory. Humanity was not the primitive species they had assumed. They were a sleeping giant, a force that had been quietly preparing for the galaxy's inevitable upheaval. The warship fired again, this time striking a critical weak point on one of Xaroth's remaining ships. It exploded in a brilliant flare, and the shockwave reverberated through the fleet. Xaroth clenched his fists, his face hardening with grim resolve. "We must stop them now," he growled, though a flicker of doubt crept into his mind. The question lingered, unspoken. Was it already too late? The warship, its crew, and its hidden legacy were far more than just a defense. It was a statement, and humanity had just begun to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. Xaroth paced in the command center of the Vernithar, frustration building in his chest as the warship's relentless strikes continued to devastate his fleet. The humans had done something the Xethorians had never expected. They had turned the tables. With every battle, the warship adapted, its AI responding to the Xethorians' attacks faster than they could react. It had become a deadly, almost sentient force, and the humans piloting it were no longer just survivors. They were warriors. The latest attack had been a devastating blow. A direct hit from the warship's energy cannon had pierced the Vernithar shields, sending a shockwave through the flagship's hull. Xaroth barely managed to stabilize the ship before the second volley came, ripping through the outer layer of armor and exposing the inner chambers. Xethorian engineers scrambled to contain the breach, but it was clear. This warship wasn't just reacting, it was predicting their moves. "Commander, they're outclassing us," Tylax said, his voice tight with anxiety. His eyes were glued to the tactical display, where the remaining ships of the Xethorian fleet were already struggling to hold their ground. "We've never encountered a ship like this. It's thinking like a human. It's anticipating our tactics." Xaroth's mind raced. The Xethorians had always prided themselves on their strategic brilliance, their ability to outthink and outfight any foe. Yet here they were, locked in a battle they were losing to a species they had once deemed primitive. The humans had not only survived, they had evolved into something far more dangerous than the Xethorians had imagined. "We can't continue to fight like this," Xaroth muttered, eyes narrowing. His mind sharpened as he considered their next move. "There's something about this warship we don't understand, but there's more at stake here than just one ship." Xaroth made a decision. "Prepare to launch a full assault. We'll bombard the warship from multiple angles, force it into a position where it has to fight on our terms." "Sir," Tylax interjected, voice edged with concern, "their energy output is fluctuating again. We won't be able to predict their response." "We don't have a choice," Xaroth snapped, voice cold with determination. "Do it now." As the Xethorian fleet rearranged itself, closing in on the warship from multiple directions, Xaroth tried to anticipate their enemy's next move. He could feel the weight of the decision bearing down on him. They were no longer fighting a ship. They were fighting humanity itself, a species that had learned the harsh lessons of survival and war in ways the Xethorians couldn't comprehend. The warship seemed to sense the change in strategy. It shifted position, darting through space with a speed that defied its size. A barrage of plasma fire rained down on the Xethorian ships, but the warship was too agile, too precise. It dodged, almost as if it were mocking the Xethorians' attempts. A flicker of energy pulsed from the warship's core, and suddenly, Xaroth's fleet was under attack from every direction. The warship's AI had outmaneuvered them once again, turning their own assault into chaos. Xethorian ships collided with each other as they scrambled to avoid the blasts. A massive energy pulse erupted from the warship, severing the Vernithar's communication array. For the first time, Xaroth felt a real sense of panic. "We're being outflanked," one of his officers shouted, panic evident in their voice. Their firepower is overwhelming. Shields are failing. Xaroth clenched his fists, fury and disbelief fighting for dominance. How could this be happening? The Exithorians had always been the hunters, the conquerors, but now they were the prey. The warship was not only a technological marvel, it was a message. Humanity wasn't just defending its home, it was proving a point to the galaxy. They were no longer weak. They were no longer the underdog. And then it clicked for Xaroth. This warship wasn't merely a weapon. It was a tool, a force designed not to destroy, but to ensure humanity's place in the cosmos. It had been built to make a statement, not just to protect Earth, but to show the universe that humanity was capable of far more than anyone had ever realized. In the middle of the chaos, something else became clear. The Exithorians had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, its adaptability, and its thirst for survival. They had assumed they could crush Earth like any other species, but humanity's strength lay not just in their technology, but in their will to adapt, to overcome, and to fight back. Retreat. Xaroth barked suddenly, his voice hoarse with a mix of rage and disbelief. We've lost. We need to regroup. But it was too late. The humans had already won. As the remnants of the Exithorian fleets scattered, broken, and demoralized, Xaroth realized that the battle for Earth was not over. It had only just begun. The warship had shown them the true face of humanity, and it was far more terrifying than anything the Exithorians had ever imagined. The war had only just begun, but now the universe would know the truth. Earth would never again be a helpless, insignificant planet. Humanity was not only ready to fight, they were prepared to win. The remnants of the Sithorian fleet limped back through the void, broken and defeated. Their once proud warships drifted through space like empty shells, their crews demoralized by the shocking turn of events. Xaroth's flagship, the Vernithar, was battered, its once imposing hull now scared by the ferocity of humanity's unexpected counterattack. Yet despite the devastation, Xaroth stood in his command room, his expression hard, eyes burning with the intensity of a realization he could no longer ignore. "We've underestimated them," he muttered to himself, his voice filled with bitter frustration. "No, we've underestimated everything about them." Tylax, standing beside him, couldn't hide his disbelief. "Commander, the humans, their warship, has outperformed us in ways we never thought possible. How did they develop this technology so fast? And why haven't we encountered something like this before?" Xaroth turned to face his science officer, his eyes sharp and cold. "The humans have been preparing for a long time. We may have thought of them as primitive, weak, but they've been quietly building, learning, and adapting for centuries. That warship, it's just a glimpse of what they've become." Tylax's mind raced, trying to piece together the scattered fragments of data from the battle. But why didn't we detect them earlier? Earth's technology was primitive in comparison to the galactic powers. Why now? Xaroth leaned back in his chair, staring into the vast expanse of space beyond the command deck. A chill ran through him as the pieces started to fall into place. The humans had known. They had known that invaders would come, that Earth would be a target, and they had been preparing for centuries in secret. Their warship wasn't just advanced technology. It was the culmination of an entire civilization's will to survive. And now, the Exithorians had awoken a sleeping giant. Earth's technological evolution was slow, but their resolve, their ability to adapt and evolve on the fly, that's what makes them dangerous, Xaroth said, his voice grim. They don't give up. They learn from their mistakes, from their encounters with us, and they build upon those lessons. We saw that in the warship. That ship was just the beginning. Tylax nodded, his expression a mix of admiration and concern. "So, what's our next move?" Xaroth's lips curled into a wry, dangerous smile. "We retreat, but only to regroup. We must learn more about Earth's capabilities. Their warship isn't the only weapon they have hidden. If they'd been preparing for this long, we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg. And now, we will. The room fell silent as the weight of his words settled in. Saruth's mind was already calculating the next steps, how to outwit a species that seemed to grow stronger with every encounter. But he couldn't ignore the gnawing fear growing inside him. Humanity wasn't just a nuisance to be wiped out. They were a force of nature. Back on Earth, in the aftermath of the battle, humanity was already beginning to rebuild. The warship, once thought to be an isolated defense mechanism, now stood as a symbol of hope and defiance. But it wasn't just the ship that had shocked the Exithorians. It was the entire human response to the invasion. The warship had been the spearhead, but behind it, humanity was uniting in ways never seen before. The people of Earth had been scattered, fractured by the scars of past invasions and the threat of future ones. But the arrival of the Exithorians had awakened something in them. It wasn't just fear. It was a fierce desire to protect their home, to ensure that no alien species would ever dare to invade again. In secret underground facilities, governments and private organizations worked tirelessly to develop more advanced weapons, more ships, and even new forms of technology, all inspired by the warship that had devastated the Exithorian fleet. Humanity had always been a species of innovators, and now they were pushing their limits. The warship itself, now fully operational and linked with Earth's global defense network, became a symbol of humanity's strength and resilience. But more importantly, it was a warning to the galaxy. Earth would not be an easy conquest. The Exithorians had learned that lesson the hard way. Across the galaxy, other species were beginning to take notice. The fall of the Exithorian fleet had sent ripples through the galactic community. The once feared Exithorians, conquerors of countless worlds, were now fleeing from a species they had once considered weak. The balance of power in the universe was shifting, and everyone could feel it. And on Earth, as people from all corners of the planet stood together, united by the knowledge that their future was in their hands, they began to prepare for the inevitable next step in their evolution. They had survived the first invasion. But what would come next? And were they truly ready for the galactic storm that was about to unfold? For the first time in history, humanity was no longer just a small, insignificant speck in the vastness of space. They were players on the galactic stage, and they had just fired the first shot. The days following the battle were a blur of activity for Earth's leaders and military officials. What had once seemed like a desperate fight for survival had transformed into a powerful statement of strength. The warship, now fully operational and connected to Earth's global defense network, was the cornerstone of a new era. But the war had only just begun, and Earth was facing an entirely new set of challenges. The Exithorians had been defeated, barely, but their retreat would only spark more interest from other, more dangerous species lurking in the vastness of space. Meanwhile, on the fringes of the galaxy, a different kind of storm was brewing. The Exithorians, though defeated, were not broken. Saruth had returned to his people, battered and humiliated, but with a singular purpose: to regroup, to rally, and to prepare for the inevitable next phase of their campaign. The Exithorians' failure was a bitter wound, one they would not allow to fester. "We underestimated the humans," Tildura said, pacing in the war room of the Exithorian fleet's command ship. "Their warship was just a beginning. They have more. They've been preparing for decades, centuries even. And it was beyond anything we could have anticipated. We cannot allow this to continue." His second-in-command, Tylax, stood at attention, listening intently. "What are you suggesting, Commander?" Saruth stopped pacing, his expression cold and calculating. "We must forge alliances. The humans are a threat to us now, but we are not the only ones who see them as a problem. There are other species in the galaxy who will not tolerate their rise. We need to unite with those who would also benefit from their fall." Tylax's eyes narrowed. You want to form an alliance with other species. Yes, Kazaroth said, voice low and dangerous. There are many races out there who see the humans as nothing more than a nuisance, an insignificant species with dangerous potential. We need to band together with them, create a coalition. With their help, we can wipe out this threat before humanity becomes too strong to stop. Far from the Xithorians, humanity had already begun preparing for the long-term consequences of their newfound prominence in the galaxy. Earth's global defense forces were restructured, consolidating the wealth of knowledge that had been amassed during the war against the Xithorians. The warship was at the center of it all, but now, Earth was not merely building more ships. They were designing entire fleets. The Echelon Protocol, once a quiet contingency plan, had been activated. Governments around the world now had a unified goal. Earth was no longer just a home. It was a fortress, a bastion of humanity's strength, and they would use the warship's technology to fuel their rise, pushing the boundaries of what they thought was possible. Behind the scenes, top scientists and engineers worked in secret research labs, unlocking the advanced technology hidden in the warship's core. They weren't just improving their own defenses, they were actively studying the alien systems. The warship's AI had been integrated into Earth's military strategy, offering invaluable insight into how to defend against any future threats. But there was more to their plans. Earth was no longer merely reacting to outside threats. They were preparing to take the offensive. Dr. Alyssa Brooks, one of the lead scientists who had helped decipher the warship's inner workings, stood before a massive digital map of the galaxy. It was a stark, almost chilling visual, filled with thousands of star systems, some marked in bright red, indicating territories where potential threats could arise. The rest were yellow, systems that were currently neutral, but possibly open to alliances. We need to expand, Dr. Brooks said, her voice filled with purpose. We can't just wait for another invasion. The Xithorians may have been our first challenge, but they won't be our last. We have to establish contact with neutral factions, form alliances. We need to build a network of strength before we are forced to fight another war. One of her colleagues, Captain Stephen Harris, nodded gravely. You're right. We need to take the initiative. If we wait too long, other species will start seeing us as a threat. If we don't act, we'll find ourselves facing a unified enemy. So we also have to think about what comes next, Dr. Brooks continued, turning to a holographic display of the warship's core. This ship is powerful, but it's only one part of a much bigger plan. The Xithorians didn't realize just how prepared we were. Now we need to take that momentum and push it further. We have to build fleets, yes, but we also need to become more than just survivors. We need to become conquerors too. As the humans worked tirelessly to ensure their place in the galactic order, the shadows of war stretched further into the stars. Xaroth's alliance of alien races began to take shape, each species driven by their own desires and fears. Some sought power, others sought revenge, but all of them feared the rise of humanity. A storm was gathering, not just across Earth's defenses, but throughout the galaxy. The Xithorians, once seen as the dominant force, were now desperate to prevent a future where humanity would rise above them. And as the alliance of enemies grew, Earth's true battle was just beginning. The universe had just seen the strength of humanity's resolve, but it would soon learn that their ambition was just as formidable. The galaxies had begun to stir. What had started as a single, brutal conflict between Earth and the Xithorians had now evolved into a full-scale reckoning for the entire universe. The ripple effects of humanity's surprising strength in battle, especially through their formidable warship, were felt far and wide. As Earth's influence expanded, so did the whispers of fear and curiosity among the galactic powers. And in the shadows of this rapidly shifting balance of power, a new alliance was born, one formed from the fear and ambition of several species who had once overlooked humanity as nothing more than a fragile anomaly. At the heart of this political upheaval stood the Galactic Court, a centuries-old assembly of the galaxy's most powerful factions. The court had long been an institution of power and diplomacy, where the fates of entire civilizations were decided. But now, the court was about to face its greatest test yet: humanity. Xerath, still seething from his defeat and the Exithorians' crushing failure, had spent the last few weeks rallying a coalition of allies. The Vaskar, a brutal insectoid species known for their overwhelming numbers and ferocity; the Talrith, a technologically advanced race with immense psychic abilities; and the Jaln, an ancient race of energy manipulators, had all pledged their support to the Exithorian cause. They would join forces, they believed, to bring humanity to heel. Their representatives were now making their way toward the Galactic Court's central hub, a colossal station located in neutral space, far beyond the reach of any single species. The station, a symbol of intergalactic governance, was where the fate of the galaxy's most pressing matters was decided. It was here that the galaxy's great powers met in tense negotiations, and it was here that Xerath's coalition would present their case. Humanity needed to be neutralized before they became a galactic threat. But Earth had its own representatives. General Isabel Carter, head of Earth's military command, had been chosen to represent humanity's interests in the court. Unlike the other factions, she had a calm yet determined presence about her, a presence that had become a symbol of Earth's unity and resilience. She knew this was not merely a diplomatic mission. It was a battle for humanity's place in the universe. Carter sat in the briefing room, her mind focused on the challenges ahead. The negotiations would not be easy. The Exithorians' propaganda had already begun to spread. Humanity was a species that could no longer be trusted, they said. With their warship technology, they had the potential to destabilize the entire galaxy. That was the narrative that the Exithorians and their new allies were pushing, hoping to sway the court's decision. "We have to show them we're more than just a military force," Carter said quietly, looking over the data her team had compiled. "We need to make it clear that humanity's place in the galaxy is not as a threat, but as a protector. We fought for survival. Now we must fight for our future." Her team, a mix of diplomats and military strategists, nodded in agreement. They were preparing to present humanity's vision, a vision not just of defense, but of peaceful coexistence and mutual cooperation. It was a long shot, but it was the only way to ensure that Earth wouldn't become another target in the galaxy's endless web of power struggles. The representatives of the Sithorium-led coalition arrived soon after, entering the courtroom with an air of arrogance, their alien forms towering and intimidating. Xerath, flanked by his allies, stood at the forefront, his expression grim. The Vaskar's insectoid figure was grotesque and menacing, the Talrith's psychic aura crackling in the air, and the Jaln's energy forms shimmered like an ethereal fog. Carter's team stood in stark contrast, but their resolve was unwavering. As she entered the galactic court chamber, the room fell silent. She could feel the weight of every eye on her, the judgment already forming in the minds of the galaxy's elite. The court was a place where alliances were made and broken, where the fate of entire species was sealed with the stroke of a pen or the destruction of a fleet. The lead judge, a member of the enigmatic Eldraxi species, raised a hand to signal the beginning of the proceedings. "The matter of Earth's recent actions is now under review," the judge intoned, his voice carrying the authority of thousands of years of galactic tradition. "The Exithorian coalition has presented their case. Humanity poses a growing threat to the galaxy's balance. How do you respond, General Carter of Earth?" Carter stood tall, her voice steady but powerful as she spoke. "Humanity is not a threat to the galaxy. We've shown our strength in defense of our home, yes, but that strength is not one we seek to use for conquest. We are a species of survivors, yes, but we are also a species of builders. We wish to join the galactic community, not as conquerors, but as allies. We have no desire for war, but we will fight with everything we have to protect our future." The words hung in the air, thick with meaning. There was no mistaking the resolve in her voice. It was a declaration of survival and unity, a testament to the strength humanity had built through generations of hardship. Saruth's eyes flashed with barely contained rage as he stepped forward. You think the galaxy will tolerate your rise, that your defense of Earth is noble. Your actions have already proven you're a threat, and the galaxy will not stand by as you continue to grow. The tension in the room was palpable. The stage was set, and the battle for humanity's place in the galaxy had begun. The decision of the Galactic Court would change everything. Either Earth would be accepted as an equal, or it would become the target of the galaxy's most powerful forces. The Galactic Court chamber fell into an uneasy silence. The members of the court, representatives from hundreds of species, each powerful in their own right, were divided, their expressions unreadable. The stakes were higher than ever before, and the fate of Earth was now in their hands. The courtroom, a massive structure suspended in the void of space, seemed to pulse with anticipation as the two opposing forces locked eyes. General Carter stood tall, unwavering in the face of the Sithorian coalition's growing hostility. Her hands were clasped firmly behind her back, her gaze steady. She knew the stakes. The galaxy was not known for its mercy. If the court ruled against humanity, Earth would be thrust into an all-out war with some of the most powerful civilizations in the universe. Saruth, visibly seething, took a step forward, his voice cutting through the stillness like a blade. You underestimate the threat you've become, General Carter. The Exithorians alone cannot stand against you. But we are not alone in this fight. He gestured toward his allies, the Vaskar, their insectoid bodies radiating a menacing energy. The Taurith, their psychic power simmering just beneath the surface, and the Jaln, whose forms pulsed like living lightning. We have formed an alliance, one that will see humanity crushed before you can even begin to build your so-called utopia. Carter didn't flinch. She knew the strength of these species, but she also understood humanity's most formidable weapon, its adaptability. What the Sithorians and their allies failed to understand was that Earth wasn't just about technology or brute force. Humanity was a species that could learn, innovate, and unite when cornered. They had fought for survival for centuries, and now they would fight to protect their future. Our strength is not in sheer numbers or power, Carter said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of human history. It is in our will to protect our home, to grow, and to unite with others who share our vision of peace and progress. We have no desire for war, but we will not stand by and let others dictate our future. The members of the court exchanged glances. The Eldraxi judge, his ancient eyes narrowing, raised a hand. This dispute is now a matter of galactic consequence. We will deliberate, and the decision will be final. The chamber hummed with energy as the representatives of the various species withdrew to their designated chambers, leaving the two factions alone. Carter remained stoic, but inwardly, the tension was mounting. She had done everything she could to present humanity as a species capable of coexistence, but the Exithorians had painted them as a rising power that would disrupt the balance of the galaxy. Their coalition had already begun to mobilize, preparing for the possibility of an all-out assault on Earth. Saruth turned, his voice low, almost a growl. You may have won the court's favor today, General, but you will never win the war. Your humanity is no match for the power of the galaxy's true rulers. We will see you fall. Carter's eyes remained locked on his, unshaken by his words. We'll see who falls, Commander. If you want war, we'll fight. But we will not go down without showing you what humanity is truly capable of. As the members of the Galactic Court reassembled to make their final decision, the winds of war began to stir. The battle for Earth was no longer a matter of one species versus another. It had become a struggle for the very soul of the galaxy, a fight between those who believed in domination and those who fought for freedom, unity, and survival. Back on Earth, the warship and the fleets that humanity had started to build stood ready. The newly formed Earth Galactic Defense Council had begun to make plans for the worst-case scenario. Humanity was no longer just a passive player in the cosmos. They had proved their strength, and now they would defend it at all costs. Across the planet, citizens, once fearful of the unknown, had rallied together, their voices united in defiance of the threats that loomed above them. In the heart of the Galactic Court, as the deliberations stretched on, Carter couldn't help but feel the weight of what was to come. The galaxy's response to Earth would either secure humanity's place among the stars or set them on a path of endless conflict. But one thing was certain. Earth was no longer the small, isolated world it had once been. Humanity had earned its place, and they would not allow anyone to take it from them. The final verdict was coming, and no matter the outcome, the galaxy would never be the same again.